Welcome to the Legacy Conversation. Welcome back to the Legacy Conversation with Jennifer Moore. Jennifer is the owner of Springs Legacy Law PLLC, where she helps individuals and families in Colorado create clear, practical estate plans and navigate probate with confidence. I'm Lisa Mosbey, and today we're breaking down how probate actually works in Colorado, what the process looks like, and when it can be avoided. Welcome back, Jennifer. Thanks for joining me again.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you so much.
Jennifer, let's start with what is probate and what purpose does it serve in Colorado?
So probate happens in Colorado. If somebody leaves a will, it will go through the process of probate. And even if somebody dies without a will or without a trust, if they own real property, their estate, which is all of their stuff, will still go through the probate process.
I think you knew my next question, and that is what types of assets go through probate and what types pass outside of it? I heard you say house, but are there others?
Yeah, that's a great question. So houses, real property will pass through probate unless it is held in a trust. So I'm just going to set trusts aside for purposes of this conversation. So if you own a house or several houses, that will all pass through the probate process. If you have any type of financial accounts and you either did not name a beneficiary on them when you set up the account, or if that beneficiary has predeceased you, it will also go through the probate process.
And I think we should maybe walk through what that looks like. What does the probate process look like from beginning to closing of an estate?
Absolutely. So, to kind of start off with what is probate. So probate is where a judge either looks at a will to make sure that it's valid or looks at the state laws to determine who should get what if somebody dies without a will. And the judge will either appoint the person that you named in your will or the person that's deceased named in their will to manage everything. Or if somebody died without a will, they will appoint a family member, usually a close friend, to manage all of their assets through the probate process. So a lot of probate, I kind of joke that it's hurry up and wait. At the outset of probate, so somebody has died. Family should always take time to grieve before they start dealing with this process. And then the will be filed with the court or lodged with the court. And there's a whole bunch of pleadings at the beginning of probate that need to be filled out. So those pleadings are prepared and they're basically, this is who was named to be the personal representative or executor in the will, or there wasn't a will. This is a person that should be the personal representative or executor, and this is why. You turn that all into a judge. You wait for a while, and then the judge will get back and either approve, yes, the person that was nominated gets to be in charge of the probate, the personal representative or executor, in which case they're executed letters testamentary, or we need to pick somebody else that's a better choice. Generally, letters will be issued because you kind of have proven why the person is a good choice. And at that point, the person who is the executor or personal representative kind of puts their conductor hat on and they get to manage the estate. So what does that mean? They will pay all of the bills, final taxes, things like that of the decedent or the person that's died. And they will distribute assets according to the terms of the will, or if there wasn't a will, according to the terms of the laws of the state in which the person died. So probate is basically the process of dumping everything in the pot and then distributing everything to the people that should receive the decedent's belongings, assets, things like that.
And I know there's no one size fits all, but how long does probate take in Colorado? And does the court system help move the process along to speed it up?
So that is, I've answered this question so many times, and it's never really an easy answer. I kind of joke that it depends is the attorney's favorite answer. And it does depend because if everything is really straightforward, um, it should go pretty smoothly. It's still probably going to take 8 months to a year, closer to a year, to complete handling a probate. And then there are kind of situations where everything runs amok. There's a child that the person didn't know about and no family members know about, or they thought they paid all their bills, but it turns out they owed all these creditors. There's so many things that can come out of left field and kind of throw probates off track, which can, lead to probates lasting for years, depending upon how much the court has to intervene and kind of decide what goes where. And that's not the court's fault. It's just that there's a lot of reasons that can kind of pop up that were perhaps unanticipated that, take more time to handle in the probate process.
And Jennifer, what costs are typical involved in a probate?
Sure. So if you choose to hire an attorney, which I'm biased, but you probably should choose to have an attorney help you out. There's those legal fees. Attorneys, charge hundreds of dollars an hour. And then there's the filing fee just to start the probate, and that's around $250, $275 just to get the probate started. And then there's publication fees, so that's another few $100s. So if you decide I'm going to do this by myself and it goes smoothly, we'll say for probate, maybe $500. If you have like a vanilla easy probate and you hire an attorney, $3,000 to $5,000 probably. And if you have the messy one, who knows? It really just depends on how messy it is. I guess, how many hours your attorney has to put in to sort out knots. And I also kind of like to say that's a really good reason to hire an attorney at the outset, because a lot of times people will look at the paperwork. Okay, I think I can figure this out. They'll miss a deadline. And then it costs so much more to hire an attorney to straighten out knots that, never should have been created. So
I have this horrible nightmare of thinking that cases that go through probate will end up at zero. Like you've waited all this time and you've eaten up every piece of every dollar in the account, and it's over. We closed it and it's at zero. Nobody gets anything because we've burned it all up in expenses. Do you ever see that happening?
I have not ever seen that happen, but I have seen probates that cost, $100,000. Happily, none that I've been part of, but in law firms that I've worked for, where generally it's relatives are fighting over every single thing, and everybody's lawyering up because they're not agreeing, or there are multiple copies of a will, and ways like that where it can get really messy and expensive. But I think it kind of comes back to the importance of a good estate plan. If you have a well clearly executed document, you're going to save fees on after you've passed away, because it will just be an easy peasy, or as close as you can come to ensuring that will be an easy peasy process where you open the probate, the will is good, and then you close the probate a year later because everything was just straightforward and easy to understand. So
that's the goal. So what role does the executor play throughout this whole process? They have to commit a year to their life, a year of their life, or maybe longer, to walk through this on your behalf. What role does the executor play?
yeah, it's a big job. They pretty much step into your shoes, and they collect all of your assets, pay all of your bills, pay your final taxes, get rid of all your stuff, or whether that is giving it to people that want it, your children, whoever want it, or whether it is, organizing and having an estate sale. They're in charge of doing all of that. Corralling all the assets, liquidating them if need be, and then distributing them. So, yeah, it can be a lot of time. The good news for executors is that you can pay yourself for your time. So it's not just necessarily a freebie job, but it is a lot of work. And um, when you're creating your estate plan, consider that it's not a gift you're giving somebody, and it also needs to be somebody that's really responsible that you would trust to handle these types of things. So,
Especially since you mentioned there are deadlines, and those deadlines, if they're missed, can be costly to reinstate or to have an attorney help you out with. What tends to cause delays or complications during the probate process?
I have one right now that, I mean, this is so weird, but the will was taken by somebody. The original signed copy of the will was taken by somebody who is now on the lam and is refusing to turn over the copy of the will. So there's a delay there because we know there's a will, but we don't have what's required to turn over to the court because it got stolen. There's other situations. I had a client where the decedent was very, very well off, very, very generous, and was kind of like a micro donor in life, and he wanted to continue that through his legacy. So he had left everything to beneficiaries in Africa, in India, in Nicaragua, and tracking them all down and, sending even $10,000, which um, is kind of an easy thing to do in the States, but to somebody that doesn't even have an address, let alone a bank account, figuring out how to send those $10,000 to every single different beneficiary, that took several years to accomplish. Things like creditors just coming out of the woodwork, they had 8 zillion credit cards, all with balances. That can take a really long time. Surprise children can take a really long time, fighting children. There's kind of, I always say, you know, probably not with a surprise child, but like talk to your family members. It's so much cheaper to talk to each other than to pay me and have them pay their attorney to duke it out. Like just talk to each other. So those are ways that can prolong a probate and make it really expensive. So,
And are there any options available for avoiding probate? And in what situations do these options actually make sense?
yeah, absolutely. So, a really popular option is a revocable living trust. This is where you put all of your assets into that trust, and then you'll avoid probate if it's properly funded. I picture a trust like a soup pot. You put all of your assets in that pot, and then you avoid probate, and it gets doled out. But if something doesn't get put in that pot, I often say, like, if there's a farm that's been passed down through generations and you forgot that you were going to inherit a 32nd of that farm or something like that, and it wasn't put into your into your trust, then a probate will have to happen to transfer that interest. So, trusts can be a really good way to avoid probate as long as they're properly funded. They're also really appealing if you own properties in multiple states because that will avoid having to have a property and have a probate in every single state in which you own property. Um, if you're somebody that just doesn't have a lot of, you don't own real property, all of your assets are tied up in bank accounts and you have your beneficiaries listed and they're still alive and they still reflect your wishes, that's a way to avoid probate. There's some ways with deeds that you can avoid probate, like a transfer on death deed. So you record that, and then when you die, the property will automatically transfer. Those are really appealing options to avoid probate if you don't really have enough to create a trust. And it's kind of simple. I have one child, I have one house. Here's my transfer on death deed. They get the house because it's just very simple and straightforward. So those would be ways that you can avoid probates.
Great insights. Let's walk through a real life example of a probate case and how it unfolded for the family. Do you have one that kind of sticks in your mind? There's always that one out there that you recall.
I have a few different ones. I kind of shared some of my stories earlier with ones that were kind of, it took a lot of time to handle. Let me think. There's a lot of straightforward, non-dramatic probates that, somebody calls, "Oh my gosh, my mom died." Um, I usually first I'm like, "Are you okay? Like, take time to take care of yourself. This is a big thing." Um, and then you file the probate. You get letters testamentary, and I give a letter, saying this is everything you need to do. So you have the bullet point checklist of all of your responsibilities. And you go through and do all of that. And if there's no hiccups, then in 8 months, you're sending checks to all of the beneficiaries, people that receive things. And it's done. And everything went smoothly. There have also been probates. One of the very first ones I ever worked on, this man, bless his heart, was very, very generous. And we had to track down 55 relatives. And he didn't have that much, but he wanted everybody to know that he loved them and he provided for them. And so that was a scenario where it really took a long time, just I guess kind of in a nice way, because we got to surprise all these people that never knew that their great uncle would include them in their will. But it was quite the process to track everybody down and find contact information to share news that, they had a check waiting to be sent to them. So
Don't leave it to chance. Probate's available, but so is planning ahead. Jennifer, thank you so much for your time today and your insights in walking us through this process. It's a long, lengthy one, and there are lots of nuances, as you had mentioned. It often depends on each individual situation, but thank you for your guidance on this.
thank you so much, Lisa.
That's it for today's episode of The Legacy Conversation with Jennifer Moore. If you're in Colorado and want to better understand how probate works or how it might apply to your situation, you can learn more by reaching out to springslawpllc.com. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like, leave a review, subscribe, and come on back next time. We'll see you there.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.